This testimony comes to us from Alex and Sarah Laird. Actually, Sarah wrote it and sent it in and wanted us to read it. She wanted to be a part of this tonight, but they live in South Carolina, so it's a little difficult for them to be here. It says, keep calm and trust God. He's more powerful than our circumstances. During the most stressful situation, He is by our side, and His love and comfort are more abundant than our pain and anxiety. It's only after you've come through the valley of despair that you can see the bigger picture. It's then that you can look back and see the great and wondrous things that God has done for you. He has always been there, even if you resist Him. He is the great orchestrator of our lives. I learned in a hurry that I had no control over anything in my life. I did learn that no matter what my circumstances were, when I felt alone and abandoned, when I felt like there was no hope, when I felt how harsh the world could be, when I felt despair in my bones, God was there. He was always there. Everything happens for a reason. We may not understand why, and we may not like our circumstances. Our trials are always for a greater purpose. We just need to keep calm and trust God. My biggest problem is condensing my thoughts on all the things that unfolded for my family, but I will do my best to keep it short and simple. My testimony begins a long time ago. I, however, am only going to cover how God worked the miracle of healing my marriage. One morning, I awoke to my husband delivering the news that he was leaving me. I begged and pleaded for him to give it a chance, for us to see a marriage counselor, something, anything. He was adamant it was over and that he wasn't coming home. His bags were already packed. Then he left. I was crushed. My whole world came crumbling down around me. That very same morning, there was a neighborhood party on our street, a church plant party thrown by the pastor that had just moved in across the street. My neighbor, that had been asking me to come to his church for weeks, came over to see where we were. Needless to say, I didn't want to be around. The new pastor and my neighbor both came to my aid to see if my girls or I needed anything. I agreed to attend church with my neighbor after months of resisting. What transpired over the next few months was a miracle. God returned me to where I needed to be. He surrounded me with love and support and the message to not give up on my marriage. He put wonderful people in my path that guided and counseled me. My youngest daughter had to undergo some testing at the children's hospital. She had a lot of discomfort and blood in her urine, so the doctors wanted to test her kidneys. After a few months of attending the river, I learned about a worldwide day of healing and prayer. I immediately decided to take my daughter to pray over her medical concern. My husband, whom I was still separated from, agreed to come with us. We arrived. We prayed with a large group for our daughter. Afterwards, I still felt I had a huge weight on my heart that needed to be lifted. My marriage was failing. I was miserable. That morning, my husband told me how he was preparing to move hundreds of miles away without us. A few people saw I had another need that I wanted to pray about. I moved to a secluded area of the church. I didn't want my husband to hear what I was asking for. Prayer for our failing marriage. One of the wonderful ladies that run the ministry listened as I poured my heart out to her. When we were done, I ended up on my knees in front of the cross, praying like I've never prayed before. I poured my heart out to God. Not long after, my husband came down front. He was uncomfortable, I could tell. But somehow, we both ended up holding hands and praying for our marriage. Only God can perform a miracle. Within minutes, he kissed me and told me he was coming home. I honestly think I was in shock and awe for the rest of the day. It all happened so quickly. But it is a day that is etched into my memory forever, a day I never thought was possible, the day that God saved my marriage. Jesus looked at them and said, "With man this is impossible, but with God all things are possible." Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. This was only the beginning. Within 6 months, my other 15-year-old daughter was diagnosed with cancer. Without our marriage trial, my family would not have been where they needed to be. Our faith would have been lacking for the bigger battle that presented itself. I thank God that we went down that path. As unpleasant as it was necessary. Only now do I see His bigger picture. Don't ever lose hope in any of your circumstances. God will be there every step of the way. Never fear. Just keep calm and trust God. Faith sees the invisible, believes the unbelievable, and receives the impossible.